G'day, fugitive Australian journalist Shane Dowling from the website kangaroocourtofaustralia.com. Now, today at the ACT inquiry into the police cover-up of the alleged rape of Brittany Higgins by Bruce Lehrmann, some smoking gun evidence dropped. A secret police report recommending criminal charges against Bruce Lehrmann. Now, that undermines the police and also the media who have been reporting that the police wanted to drop the charges against Lehrmann, or they didn't want to charge him, or they didn't think there was sufficient evidence to charge him, and all that sort of garbage, which all the old media have been reporting the last sort of few days, and even the last couple of weeks, and even last year when the Mueller report was leaked to the Australian newspaper, they're reporting how the police didn't want to charge him. Well, a secret report came to light today. Well, it came to light yesterday, but the content of it wasn't known. And the bottom line to it is, and I'll read it out verbatim, it says the review team acknowledges that the court is a proper authority for these issues to be determined in relation to the alleged rape of Brittany Higgins by Bruce Lehrmann. Now, this first piece of video I'm going to show you, it sort of sets the background. Now, Detective Superintendent Scott Mueller had a meeting with his boss, DCPO Chu, Deputy Chief Police Officer Chu, and he was trying to convince him, Mueller didn't think there was sufficient evidence to charge Lehrmann. He wanted to get some external advice on whether they should charge him or not. And Chu said no. We'll go to the ACT DPP, Director of Public Prosecutions, Shane Drumgold, and we'll also get a red team assessment where it goes internally to another team of police officers. And they'll review it and they'll determine what, they'll give you some advice. And Commander Smith oversaw the red team assessment. Now, at the end of the red team assessment, obviously, they recommended that the court was a proper authority to determine the issues. So let's watch this first piece of video. And you see Scott Mueller, he's one of those mouthy types, instead of answering yes or no, he's got to mouth off and give these full, long-winded answers. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else in the room, that sort of type of guy. But he really dug a hole for himself today. I'm only concentrating on this issue at the moment, but the next few days I'll report on other issues that came out today. So let's listen to the video.
However, the decision that came back was on a one-page document from DCPO Chu, in which he indicated his decision that the brief should be referred to the ACT DPP for assessment and consideration of prosecution.
And?
I'll come to that. Do you agree?
Yes.
So that must have been a disappointment to you?
No, Mr. Desky, it's not a disappointment to me. And to be honest, it's kind of offensive that you keep saying it's disappointing, because it wasn't. We were committed to this investigation, and I was highlighting some of the issues that I found. I don't think you need to overstate that it was, disappointing to me.
See, what I'm suggesting to you is that you were trying to convince the DCPO to come to the view that the matter shouldn't progress, but he decided instead to refer the matter to the DPP for an advice.
Which was a great decision.
And he also ordered a report to be produced by, or a red team review. Is that right?
That's right.
And that was done by Commander Smith?
It was, yes.
Now, in a second, I'll show you the last part where you'll see Mark Tedeschi, who's representing ACT Director of Public Prosecution, Shane Drumgold, and he's cross-examining Scott Mueller. And he raises a red team assessment where they recommended the court as a proper authority to determine the issues. And he says that's a recommendation. And Scott Mueller says, it's not a recommendation. He says about 3 times, but recommendation, opinion, really doesn't matter. Bottom line is the only way the court can determine the issues is if they charge Lehrmann. So it's obviously a recommendation to charge Lehrmann, no matter how you look at it, whether it's an opinion or a review. But Scott Mueller, he's ducking and weaving, and at the end he realises he's sort of the game's up, and he says, reads it out. The expression on his face, he knows the game's up. It's clearly a recommendation to charge Lehrmann. Which undermines Scott Mueller's argument. The Director of Public Prosecutions were pressuring him to charge Lehrmann and all this sort of garbage. Their own internal review by the red team assessment reviewed all evidence and determined, being the courts the proper authority to determine the issues. In other words, charge Lehrmann. Now let's listen to it.
You referred to the fact earlier that DCP02 had obtained a red team review, and I think you described to Mr. Jones what a red team review is, I think. It's an independent review of the investigation by a completely independent team within the police force.
Yeah.
And he was very complimentary about the actual investigation, was he not?
Well, thank you, Mr. Tedeschi. Yes, he was.
However, do you agree that in relation to whether or not there was sufficient evidence to prosecute, what Commander Smith said was this, and I'm referring to the 5th page.
Can we have the document up
Yes,
so I can read it?
AFP 2003 005 0665. Thank you. Do you see there, just above the dot point notes, Commander Smith has written this: the review team acknowledges that the court is the proper authority for these issues to be determined. And then he refers to some of the issues that would arise at a trial.
That's what he says.
It would appear from that, would it not, that Commander Smith was of the view that this was a proper matter to be litigated in court.
Oh, Mr. Smith doesn't make any recommendations in relation to that.
Make a recommendation, but he expressed that view, didn't he, on behalf of the review team?
I can see what he says in there, but he certainly never made any recommendations. So I can read what he says there, and I guess you'd have to ask Mr. Smith what he recommended. But from my reading of that, he acknowledges that the court is the proper authority for these issues to be determined.
Probably worth watching that last section again, just to see Scott Muller, when he knew the game was up towards the end, he going, "Oh, no recommendation, no recommendation. Oh, you'll have to ask Commander Smith what he was recommending." Well, it's blatantly obvious what he was recommending. The court charged Lehrmann. And right at the end there, Scott Muller reads it out and he knows the game's up. So not only does that undermine the police's allegation that the Director of Public Prosecutions was pressuring him to charge and everyone else was pressuring him to charge Lehrmann, et cetera, their own internal review of that team, the police team, in effect, that red team assessment makes a team that investigated Bruce Lehrmann look incompetent and negligent because they didn't want to charge Lehrmann. They're whinging in the media. They leaked the Mueller report undermining or attacking Brittany Higgins, but they didn't release a red team assessment now, did they? And we only came to light today. Well, it came to light yesterday, but we didn't know the content. The content came to light today, and still you see all the media reporting, oh, the police didn't want to charge Lehrmann, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they fucking did. And it's called the red team assessment. So any of those bullshit journalists out there now reporting that the police didn't want to charge Lehrmann, they're lying. Scott Muller's one of those snivelling cowards who would abuse his position as a copper. It came out in his body language and the way he was mouthing off today, giving lip service right throughout. But he's in a lot of trouble, and I'll report on that in the next few days as well. Anyhow, Kangaroo Court of Australia's independent media. I publish a website, YouTube channel, Facebook page and Twitter account, and I'm reliant on donations to keep on publishing. So please support my Patreon account or PayPal account, and please share this video on Twitter and Facebook, etc. Thank you for your time and have a good day.